Today on Quiet Arena Podcast,
The transition was still hard because once it's over, it's
Ben
over.
Utecht.
Identity can sometimes blind us to the reality that the majority of our life is going to be lived outside of this game.
Make sure that you're not afraid to speak the truth because you're running away from the friction that truth might cause.
And he said, men, if you're sitting in this room and your entire identity is wrapped up in a sport, you've completely missed the purpose of your life. When the arena goes quiet, when that time is over, where does my commitment lie? And
The stadium is loud, the lights are bright, the crowd is cheering.
Rumor has it, I'm a savage, drop the classic, thinking back.
But every athlete eventually has to answer one question. What happens next? Because when the arena goes quiet, the real game begins. Welcome to Quiet Arena.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is your man, Tony the Tycoon, and welcome to the Quiet Arena, a.k.a. to the locker room. You know, I always shout out my man, Coach D, for giving me that one. Shout out to you, Coach D, for the locker room. But we are here, and look, I'm excited about today's guest. Not only because he played the tight end position, as did I in high school, right? Nowhere near as great as this guy. Today's guest is someone who reached the highest level of the game and then had to fight to remember it. A Super Bowl champion with the Indianapolis Colts, catching passes from Peyton Manning, living the kind of career most athletes dream about. From the outside, it looked like everything was exactly how it was supposed to be, but behind the scenes, the cost was building. Hit after hit, concussion after concussion, until one moment changed everything. Because this isn't just a football story. This is a story about memory, about identity, and about what happens when the thing that defined your life starts to slip away. From battling memory loss to fearing he might not recognize his own family to rebuilding his life through music, writing, and purpose, he didn't just walk away from the game. He had to rediscover who he was without it. Ben Utecht, man, welcome to the locker room, brother. I'm so happy.
awesome. Thank you, Tony, man. It feels good to be back in the locker room.
Yeah, man.
I
Been a
miss
while.
it. I miss it.
Yeah. Well, look, let's start off here. Let's jump into it. You're a Super Bowl champion, so congratulations on that. That's a legacy move there, right?
Thank you so much.
And you played at the highest levels, like we talked about. You caught passes from the great Peyton Manning, who many consider to be one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. When you look back at that moment, when did it really feel like to you that you reached the top of your game?
Oh man. Well, look, you know, my journey to Indianapolis was truly miraculous, Tony, because I had a significant injury my senior year coming out of college. Like I was one of the top tight ends in the country. I was up for the Mackey Award, and we were playing Wisconsin towards the end of the season. And I released on a corner route, and when I turned to look for the ball, I hear and feel popping all across my lower abdomen, pop, 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 and my legs stopped working, and I crumbled to the turf. What had ended up happening is I ended up tearing my abdominal muscles from the pubic bone on both sides. And so I went from potentially being a 15th to the 32nd pick, as I was being told, to not getting drafted at all. Because when I went to the combine, all of the physicians red flagged me as too much of a health risk. And so the draft comes along, my name isn't called, and I'm driving up to my agent's office, holding back tears, thinking, it's over. Like I had my college degree, but I put all my eggs in the football basket, and it's over. 2 months before that moment, I have a chance to speak at a huge alumni event on the University of Minnesota campus, and I get to open for guess who? Tony Dungy.
Wow.
Tony Dungy, former Gopher quarterback
Yeah.
and Pittsburgh Steeler. So I get to open for Tony Dungy. And I get up in front of 700 people and I say, hey, coach, if you really care about being a Gopher, if you really care about the University of Minnesota, you're going to draft me in the upcoming draft. And everybody laughed. He was gracious enough to respond when he came up to the podium. He said, you know what, Ben, we know how talented you are, but we drafted a first-round tight end last year in Dallas Clark out of Iowa. Incredible tight end.
Yeah.
And so he said, you know what, we're not really going to be looking for tight ends this year. And then he stepped back from the podium, put his hand on his chin as if he was being downloaded something. Came back to the mic and he said, "You know what? I'm going to make a promise to you in front of all these people. If for some reason you slip through the cracks, I promise I'll be the first person to call." And everybody clapped and cheered. Well, fast forward, I don't get drafted because of this horrible injury. 5 seconds after the free agent market opens, the phone in the middle of my agent desk rings and I pick it up, and who do you think it was? Tony Dungy.
Yeah, man. Wow.
Not only Tony Dungy, but Hall of Fame general manager Bill Polian calling a free agent. And they said, "We didn't think this was going to happen. We know why you weren't drafted, and we've dealt with this injury before. So here's what we want. We want you to be a Colt. We're going to send you to the top surgeon in the country, and we don't even want you to play the first year. Just get better. And on top of that, we'll pay you as though you're a playing rookie.
Wow.
So here's $230,000 to rest. And on top of that, we'll give you a $20,000 signing bonus." Now, that wasn't what I would have made as a first rounder, but the fact that they paid me to recover. So the next year, Dallas Clark goes down in the last preseason game with an injury. So I get to start Sunday night kickoff against Ray Lewis and the Baltimore Ravens.
Congratulations.
And you know all about it, right? So when Ray comes out of the tunnel in real life, you just want to run to the bathroom. But I'll tell you what, Tony, like, third quarter rolls around, I release on a seam route, the safety botched the coverage, left me wide open. Peyton saw it, hit me back shoulder, made the adjustment, turn, ran with everything I had, barreled through the safety, touchdown. Very first NFL game. As I'm getting off of the safety, I realize it's Deion Sanders, who had come out of retirement for 2 years to play with the Ravens.
Yeah.
So my first NFL game, touchdown from a Hall of Fame quarterback, ran through arguably the greatest defensive back in history.
Yeah.
And it's only because of one man
Yeah.
practicing servant leadership, building a culture on the foundation of belief, and giving me an opportunity to play. Like, so long answer to your question, but that's what was so special about that organization was the culture that Tony Dungy built that was designed to pour purpose into every player that came into that organization. So the only reason I even was on that Super Bowl field was because of Tony Dungy. And, you know, I've given most of my corporate, you know, life to that cause, you know, and so truly was a blessing beyond imagination.
Yeah. Wow. That's so powerful. You know, it's so interesting because I know he runs the Christian Athletes organization, Coach Dungy.
Yeah.
He's written a couple of books. One of them I'm currently reading now. He's also been through some horrendous things that no parent would ever want to go through, but yet it's still his faith and his leadership still remains. And everybody that's had any type of interaction with him has always had nothing but the greatest things to say about him. And it's funny because I guess you would say I'm an extension of Coach Dungy by way of Coach Tomlin, by being drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. And you saw a lot of similarities with Coach Tomlin with how he did it. He did it in a different way, you know.
Right.
But how he did it. When you're thinking about, you know, your football life, you know, quote unquote being over because of this injury, and all of a sudden you get this call. What is that feeling like? What's going on through your mind at that time?
Oh man. It was like I don't know how to it was like this revelation moment. It was like a bolt of light. Like I had really forgotten about that moment.
Yeah.
I was so consumed with, you know, the current situation and the reality that I might never play football again. And when I picked up that phone and heard his voice, it was like this. I was instantly back in time, remembering what he was saying. And the amount of integrity and character in that man following through on a promise that he made months ago, it's hard to really put into words. But to your point, I think that's one of the reasons why people respect him so much, is because he truly practices what he preaches. And because he behaves with that authenticity and that consistency, you can't help but respect someone like that. And so that was not only did it make my dream of playing in the NFL a reality, but even in that moment, he was beginning to develop my character as a young man, because he was showing me how important it is to follow through on what you say, right? And how important it is to invest in people. And I've tried to take the investment he gave into me and apply it to everything that I do today.
Man, one of the words that you use is integrity. And I was lifting. I lift pretty much every day. So
Yeah, me too.
I was working out, and I've started doing this thing where, not for views or clicks or likes, but just to hear how I speak to myself internally, externally. So I started recording myself and just turning the camera on and doing my workout, but I would be speaking out loud. And then I would go back and watch to hear the things that I was speaking about, right? Because when you get into that zone, you're unconscious, man. You're getting after it. I'm locked in on my set. I'm going after it, and you're talking. And one of the things that I was talking about was integrity, right? Meaning, like, first for me, my spiritual faith is the integrity of me being a follower of Christ, right? So what does that look like? How does that look according to how the scriptures define it, right? And a lot of times what I've come to realize is integrity is an intrinsic battle, right?
It's a choice.
It's a decision that no matter what the circumstance is extrinsically, that you're going to remain the same first internally, and then that action will continue to move forward externally, right? Because you've already made the decision to be this. And I see, and that's the thing too, when you talk about Coach Dungy, is that he has decades of that, right? And so all we can, hope for is to look at an example like that and to say, let's keep walking.
Well, you come across these people in our lives that really are a reflection of who Christ really was. And when you think about, you and I are believers thousands of years after Jesus ascended. But think about what it was like for those disciples to actually walk with him.
Yeah.
And you and I have had the privilege of walking alongside leaders. And when we think about Tomlin, and when we think about Dungy, when we think about the leaders that have had such an impact on our lives and how we're choosing to behave today, it's almost we have that connection from 2,000 years ago where we've been able to walk alongside people that, especially Coach Dungy for me, that choose to live in a way consistently, which shows me I can live in that way consistently.
Yeah.
And that's what's he's given me so much, man.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. When it comes to one of the things that we focus on this show, we talk about the transition of the athlete, right? And the identity of being, the football player. So when you're moving in this space and you're finding some success of being a professional athlete, how much of your identity is tied to being the football player as opposed to being the person?
Yeah. Oh man, that's a that's a great question, because, athletes really struggle with this identity battle. I don't know how, I don't know if you can relate to that, but, I'll never forget this. My first team meeting in Indianapolis, Coach Dungy came in and he said, "I'm going to share something with you that my head coach at the Steelers said to us in the very first team meeting." And he said, "Men, if you're sitting in this room and your entire identity is wrapped up in a sport, you've completely missed the purpose of your life." And I was like, "What?"
From the great wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd never heard anything like that. If you're sitting in this room and your whole identity is wrapped up in football, you've completely missed the purpose of your life. And so, I think it's a great question, because I think one of the things that makes the transition for us so challenging Tony, is that we all started playing when we were in, first, second, third grade.
Yeah.
All we know is this game,
Yeah.
and the decades of time, energy, and money that were put into creating that identity can sometimes blind us to the reality that the majority of our life is going to be lived outside of this game, and that we have a purpose of value and significance, to bring something to the world that is far greater and far outside of just catching footballs,
Mm-hmm.
and scoring touchdowns. And so I thankfully grew up in a family. My dad's been a pastor for almost 50 years. So I thankfully grew up in a family where we talked a lot about identity and a lot about purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that really helped me in my transition was truly believing that the calling on my life was so much bigger than a sport or a game.
Yeah.
Now it didn't mean that I didn't struggle. I mean, the transition was still hard because once it's over like this,
Yeah.
right? You walk into that room and your locker's cleaned out, and even though you gave 7 years to this league, I mean, it's in one day you're out,
Yeah.
and so you're confronted with that transition instantly, and so but I think because I had a good foundation of faith and of identity and purpose, it helped me um, rely on the trust that he would make my path straight.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Uh, it's so interesting to think about the process of entering into the league and the fanfare of it versus the loneliness of leaving it.
Yes.
Because when you came in with a group of individuals that are high fiving you, telling you how great you are. Everybody's excited and happy. But when you leave, man, it's for you. Fortunately, it's you and your wife. And of course you have your loved ones, but
Yep.
it's not a big fanfare for the most part
No.
when you're exiting.
Yeah, that was tough. That was tough, and I was dealing with that last concussion and some of the cognitive issues that I was having. And even with all of that, I tried for that next year and a half. I tried to get back. I even had some team tryouts and some opportunities, but my dad eventually. I had an opportunity with the team, and my dad eventually said at a family meeting about it, "If you go back and play, I'm never going to watch you again." And I was like, "Wow, okay." That was like his moment of saying, your health and your family are more important.
Mm.
And so that was kind of a moment for me where I was able to let go. Because of that confrontation, I was able to make an internal choice
Mm-hmm.
that believed that what he was saying was true.
Yeah.
But before that, it's like the injury took it away. The team said goodbye. I never really had a chance to make the choice.
Yeah.
And so that became kind of my moment where I was like, yeah, I think this is what's best. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's huge. That's huge, Ben. It's interesting that you said that you didn't get the opportunity to make the choice. I believe that's many athletes, circumstance, right? I get asked often, I played almost 10 years in the league. I get asked often, do you miss it? And they're so floored by when I say I don't, right? But the reason why I say I don't and I truly mean it is because I actually, by the grace of God, got to experience saying I'm done. Like I was on a team. I signed a contract. They're making plans for me as the swing lineman, all of this stuff. And I'm like, nah, man, I'm done. Right? And that's a different way of leaving the game
Yeah.
than the game or a team or a coach or general managers or the analytics people, whoever it is, saying, yeah, this guy can't do it anymore.
Right.
Right? When you came to that conclusion that you were done, right? what's going through your mind at that time? Are there flashbacks of everything that you've gone through? Are you remembering the Pop Warner League games? Like, what is that? I'm thinking about like the movie scene where the guy is walking off. You know what I mean? Like, what was that moment like for you?
I think the hardest part for me, Tony, was that I never felt like I reached my full potential.
Mm.
You know, I I worked so hard in college to become like, top one, two, maybe three tight ends in the country. Like I was right there, and I had this vision of being a perennial Pro Bowl tight end. And, I'm tall, I'm fast, I can catch, I can block. This is going to be my moment. And, you know, going to Cincinnati was going to be that opportunity. Dallas just signed his big contract in Indianapolis. They couldn't afford to have two tight ends like that. So Cincinnati stepped up. I was still a restricted free agent, but they came in and took me, out of that. So that was going to be my moment. I was going to, I had Carson Palmer, we had Hushman Zada, Chris Hen. I mean, we had a powerful offense.
Yeah.
Cedric Benson.
Oh man, God.
Yeah.
Cedric, man.
Yeah, R.I.P. man. Same with Chris Henry.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. But so what was tough for me was, when I walked away, my memories were going back into this, struggle with, not actually achieving what I set out to achieve.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, that's still a gap.
Mm.
That's still a gap. Like
Even to this day.
Even to this day, I'm 45 years old in June, and I'll still have these dreams or or daydreaming where I'm going back and thinking about this play, or this drop, or this situation that didn't work out, and reliving those moments, right? Because we're competitors, and and I think for me, that was one of the hardest things was, even though I made the choice, looking back, it was never the career that even though it was very successful, I was a starter, was on a Super Bowl winning team, but it wasn't what I believed I was ultimately capable of.
Yeah.
And so that's always left a bit of a wound.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the gap is due to the fact that although the outcome was successful, especially considering where you started from, being a tight end that was more than serviceable, that a Hall of Famer relied on in crucial situations. I actually saw some of your highlight tapes where he's looking for the guy and he sees you and he's getting ready to right, so he knows where you're at. Yeah. So that shows that trust that he had in you. Being a Super Bowl champion, getting the best of one of the greatest defensive backs of all time. Even all of those highlights could not trump the expectation that you had for yourself. So is it safe to say that gap could be also considered a regret?
Yeah, I mean, I don't regret the effort.
Yeah.
I don't regret the
regret as it pertains to it not turning out the way that you wanted it.
Yeah, I the word that I was thinking was just bitterness. Like there's still, but it was nobody's fault. I mean, my body just, my body just started to, to break down. I mean, I started to get more injuries more frequently, and there's nothing that I could really do about it.
Yeah.
Which sometimes can make it even worse because, you're given everything you have, and things that are outside of your control are happening that are keeping you from, reaching your greatest potential. And so, yeah, I would say that there's a part of me that just looks back on, my time, especially in Cincinnati, regretting that it never became what I had hoped that it would be.
Yeah. No,
even for the Brown family in the city of Cincinnati, like you're gonna invest, a significant amount of money into a player and it just doesn't work out, you know, like there were even moments where I just felt really bad that the investment didn't work out, you know, in the way that the organization hoped it would work out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so these are all of these things that are kind of going through athletes' minds as they're, you know, as they're having to kind of transition out. But to be fair, it's balanced with so many wonderful memories too.
Yeah.
And you know, and so, but I'm just being vulnerable with you because we're in the locker room.
Yeah, no, listen, I appreciate it. Absolutely. That's exactly what we want this to be, man, to be vulnerable, to open up for people to see this side, because there's so many individuals are that aspire to get to that level, but for whatever reason it just doesn't work out. And it's interesting because I'm hearing you speak, and I promise you, man, this got to be a God thing. I just had a conversation with Tavon Austin, great college player, really good pro player, and how his peers look at him as it pertains to his greatness, he doesn't see himself the same way. Because similar to the things that you're saying, he wanted a different outcome for his professional career, but similar to you, he dealt with the concussion thing as well, which caused him to, you know, have to exit earlier than he would like. But I will say this, when we talk about memory, I want to take you back to young Ben growing up in Minnesota, balancing, okay, check this out, guys. Football and music. Yeah, let's talk about that, man. What was life growing up, man? Catching touchdown passes on Friday, but then having musicals on a Monday. I'm assuming. I don't know the dates, but I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, it was a unique environment that I was raised in. My dad was a vocal music major to be a choir teacher before he became a pastor, and my mom was a singer. Um, and both grandparents on both sides of the family were in entertainment, were in theatrical arts, were in sports center. So I kind of grew up in this environment that celebrated athletics and the arts.
Mm.
And growing up in the church, you've got a platform. And so, you know, I was singing at a young age and started singing in church. And obviously I had, you know, parents that could provide some education and some training. We had an awesome choral program in high school, and I just fell in love with it. And I was excelling at that as well. And began singing professionally in college and started doing, you know, national anthems for all of the Gopher events. And then when I went to Indianapolis, I was speaking at a youth event and singing, and in the crowd was a woman wearing a Peyton Manning jersey. And after the event, she rushed me, and she was so excited, and she's like, "You have to sign this autograph for me. I'm the biggest Colts fan." I said, "Who do I make it out to?" And she said, "Sandy Patty." And I went, "Sandy Patty?" Sandy Patty is like the most decorated female singer in history, second to Celine Dion.
Oh, wow.
We're talking like multi Grammy award winning, all of it. She's like the biggest name in Christian music. And so I grew up listening to my mom sing Sandy Patty in church all the time. So anyway, so I hand her back the paper and say, "No, you need to sign this for me." But I ended up signing to Sandy's record label and to her management. And so I began, you know, a professional singing career while I was playing in the NFL, which was really kind of crazy. Like I got asked by the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra to sing in 16 concerts during December.
Playoff run.
So imagine that. Like,
Yeah.
imagine like the fear that you would be feeling to have to go ask Bill Polian and Tony Dungy, "Hey, can I perform with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra while we're heading into playoffs?" But to their credit, they said, "Look, we love this opportunity for you, I think it's great for the organization. The minute it affects your performance, it's over.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. Thankfully, it didn't. But yeah, 16 concerts. We had. I remember we had just beaten Jacksonville, and I'm literally running off the field, changing, sprinting through the downtown Skyway to get to the orchestra hall, putting on my blue and white tux, and walking out to a sold out orchestra hall to sing with Sandy Patty and the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra.
Wow.
It was crazy. So anyway, yeah, I gave music a shot, and one of the hardest industries to build a career in, but I still sing professionally as a hobby and really love it.
Yeah, man. Well, you have an amazing voice, man. I went on YouTube and I saw the one where it was you were lying in the hospital bed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the young Ben with the long flowing hair, right? The heartthrob Ben
and the Jesus beard.
Yeah, I saw it, man. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, for everybody that's watching, I need to go check him out, man. He's not just talking to be talking. This dude really has skills, right? Yeah. But I wanna stay in that moment with you, man. Like,
yeah,
you're catching passes against, like, my mind is going nuts right now when I'm asking this question because I'm just like, this stuff is happening. What year was this that this was taking place?
So that would have been about 2000, I think 2007.
2007. Okay, got it. All right, so that's going into, I'm getting ready to ride into my rookie year. So as I'm just thinking about parallels. So as I'm going into the NFL, my guy Ben is catching passes professionally and singing in front of the people. Okay, here's the question. Which crowd made you the most nervous?
Oh, definitely singing.
Yeah.
Definitely singing.
Yeah.
Because there's no equipment.
Yep.
There's no helmet.
Yep.
You have to look everybody in the eye. Your voice is on microphone, so they hear everything.
Yeah.
Every little note, so the vulnerability when on stage singing with the audience is very different than in the NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that definitely was a nerve-wracking thing. Now, what's really cool is, and I think I might be the only NFL player in history for this to happen, before I ever played a snap in Indianapolis, they asked me to sing the national anthem in a preseason game against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
So my very first introduction to the Indianapolis RCA Dome at the time was as a singer, not as a football player.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
I'm seeing all of these like breadcrumbs that lead you up to the place, to Indianapolis, man. That's wild, man. How
it's wild.
The master chess player, man, he just puts you in positions to do things and it doesn't make sense until the end of it.
100%. Yeah.
So one of the things, Ben, that I read about on the medical side, because you suffered, I think they said 5 that were documented, concussions that were documented, right?
Yes.
And in today's age of football, you have the concussion awareness and all of those particular things that are taking place now, right? We see the soft helmets and everything. We saw the movie. Well, I haven't seen the movie. I still refuse to see the movie. I don't know why. Maybe that's just something that's holding me back because I don't want to get into the weeds and know that that's happened to me. But you're a huge advocate about concussions and what it does to the athletes. But before we dive into your advocacy of that, can you take us maybe behind the scenes of the things that you dealt with that maybe the average fan or, distant relative would not have known you were going through? Or even your wife, like just those internal things that you were dealing with while going through that.
Yeah. Well, first let's just talk about what it's like to actually go through a concussion.
Yeah.
My 4th concussion is when I had the most severe diagnosis, which was a diagnosis of amnesia. I'm trying to remember the play. So we had ended up playing the Denver Broncos. and I had ended up on the ground, and a pursuing defensive tackle went to jump over me, and his cleat clipped the back of my helmet, and then I completely went unconscious. And after about 5 to 10 seconds, I start rolling around, and I get up, and I'm high fiving my teammates. I sprint off to the sideline. I'm high fiving coaches and training staff, um, and I remember none of it. Like, the only reason I can tell you that story was because of walking in the next day and watching it happen. And I think that's, important for people to understand is, the injury is unique to an orthopedic injury. Like, something is happening physiologically in the brain that is damaging. And in this situation, it completely wiped out a complete day of memory. Like, it's not like it's not like you can go back and recollect. It's completely gone, Tony. Like, it's like somebody took a dry eraser of that entire moment, and it doesn't exist, right? So that was really strange to walk into the club the next day, to watch this happening on film, and to see myself. My body's working, my brain is working. I'm high fiving people. And I don't. It's like it never happened. Right. So that's a strange feeling. Amnesia is kind of crazy, and in the process of my last concussion and exiting, I started having these cognitive issues where I used to have great memory recall, but I started to become what I called a post-it note person. I mean, if you saw my office, everything had to be put on post-it notes. Like, my working memory, like what you can remember in the first 4 to 5 minutes, it was very poor. And I started having some more memory gaps, like long-term memory gaps, where I'd be, sitting around a table with friends, and everybody remembers this moment. And I'm just sitting there kind of in this fog going, man, I don't even remember being there.
Yeah.
And this is at 29 years old. And so, those are some of the things that I was, having to deal with. At the same time, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the movie on CTE,
Yeah.
how the media is portraying. You remember this because you were just coming in the league. Like,
Yeah.
the concussion crisis was portrayed in a very serious and scary, framework. And so all of the cognitive weaknesses, on top of the fear of what could actually happen, these were all the things that I was kind of dealing with at the time.
Yeah. No, man, it's interesting to hear you speak about that when you talk about the seriousness of concussions. I'm reminded of the linebacker in San Francisco. Oh man, I can't remember the young man's name. This was right after Patrick Willis had retired, and there was a guy that was coming up behind him. He's a real good player, and he played for like maybe 2 or 3 years, and then he just retired like randomly.
Was he from Wisconsin?
I believe so.
I think I know who you're. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And it was a big deal. It was a real big deal. It's like, this guy's only been in the league for 3 years. He's the next up. He's a phenomenal player. They were comparing him to Luke Kuechly. It was all types of stuff happening. And my theory is, I believe he saw what was going on and just decided, I have what I need, and maybe there's investments, or maybe there's business that I can do with what I have, and I'm done. So I kind of pinpoint that particular story, and I got to go back and get his name, but I pinpoint that moment because now I'm starting to see more athletes retire earlier and earlier and earlier. I remember on my timeline, I counted, I had like 10 people, 10 guys that had just retired, like 8 years, 5 years, 6 years, couple 9, 10 years, but they were like, they're getting out. And I believe it's because of the awareness of a couple of things. One, more athletes are starting to look at themselves from an entrepreneurial space, and they're starting to understand and align themselves with opportunities of investments. So it's helping them to be able to make wise decisions with their money, which now is giving them options. right? And then when you throw in NIL, we're starting to see guys get paid. It's funny to say this, but you had some guys that were taking pay cuts
Yeah.
drafted to the NFL, right? And so you have that situation that's taking place too. I'm curious to see, have you noticed that, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed it as well. I think that I think concussions, the concussion injury, I think began to create a narrative that was beginning to change, the way players were looking at their longevity,
Yeah,
right? Because, when you get into brain disease, there is no cure. And so, the long-term effects of brain disease are pretty significant. And so that's going to change some players' life strategy.
yeah, yeah,
When other forms of data, like the fact that I think the average lifespan of an NFL player is only like 58 years old.
yeah. For offensive linemen, it's like 52, 53.
So think about that. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's 7 to 10 years from now,
yeah,
for me. And so, and there's a number of reasons why that exists, and because of what the strain of the hit, of the impact, and the strain of the force that we have to lift weights, and the force that we have to push people, the impact that has on the ventricles in the heart over time. Like it's not just brain. Like there's a number of objective reasons why that lifespan is what it is. And so, I think that now that information is more readily available, it's going to definitely have an impact on some athletes, who, to your point, might have found other identities, other vocational purposes that they have passion for. So,
yeah.
I think you're right.
When doing the research on you, you talked about the experience that you had going through not only the protocol, but then having just to find the right doctors to be able to help what was going on. Can you go into that a little bit? Talk about what that process was like, and where you believe that it can become better, so that athletes that have had that experience know exactly where to go to get that help.
Yeah, I mean, I when I became the spokesperson for the American Academy of Neurology, it brought me into this world that I had never experienced before. So they're the most prestigious neurology group in the world. They're based in Minneapolis, actually. So they're in my backyard, but they represent 40,000 plus neurologists in their association. And so I got to really spend time with some of the greatest neurological minds in the world, and just learning about the brain. And so one of the things that I would speak about is the importance for parents, especially with young children and teenage children in contact sports, how important it is for them to build a relationship with a neurologist, because a neurologist is the diagnostic brain expert. And so it's obviously very important to have a good relationship with your athletic trainers, with your general care physicians, with an orthopedic surgeon, just in case an injury happens, but also with a neurologist, so that if your child ever experiences a concussion, you can take them to the expert of the brain. And I think that's something that's just really important for people to learn, right? When you have an orthopedic injury, you go to an orthopedic surgeon who's a specialist for that injury.
Yeah.
And it should be the same way when it comes to your brain.
When you were getting back, because I've read where you were doing a lot of the tests, the neurological tests, and they were helping to elevate you. And then over time, what ended up happening is you started out where you couldn't remember things for 5 minutes, and then it increased to where I can do for 30 minutes, and then it went from 30 minutes to now, hey, I can remember things for an hour, and it just continued to elevate. And even now when I'm talking about it, I can see the excitement.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, can you go into that a little bit, because that's something
Yeah.
I've never heard of.
So one of the things that I learned from my neurologist physician friends is that neuroplasticity is a real thing. Like neuroplasticity is part of what is the miracle of the brain. And so you have to look at these neural pathways. The neural pathways in our brain are the pathways that carry the energy for everything that we do, all of our decisions, our behaviors, right? So we've got all these pathways. When you have a concussion, those pathways can be injured, right? It's like when you're driving to your destination, and all of a sudden you start to see construction signs, right? And this stretch of road has been broken down, and you're no longer able to travel on that, right? That's what a concussion can do. It's like it can erode the pathway, and all of a sudden now you see another sign that says detour. The brain, through neuroplasticity, can create, not only can it rehabilitate old pathways, but it can also create new pathways to get you to the same destination. So if one of your pathways has been destroyed due to injury, neuroplasticity can find another way to get there.
Wow, like you talked about the detours, and so that's something that can be worked. You can work on that.
So case in point, so I started working with a company called Learning RX, which is a brain training franchise, and they're all over the country. And I signed up for a 3-month intensive program where Monday through Thursday, an hour and a half a session, I sat across from a brain trainer who worked me out like you and I used to work out in the weight room, right? And I sat down for, 6 hours a week for 3 months. When I did my pre-neuropsych evaluation, my short and long-term memory were in the 12th and 17th percentile. So not good, right? And that was such a relief for me, Tony, because I was talking about concussions leaving the NFL at a time when it was very tense. And I was being real careful because I didn't want to be blacklisted by the NFL because they've given me so much.
Yeah.
So I had this pro-brain, pro-game message. At the same time, I was really struggling. And for the first time, I had objective medical data saying that I wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
That the memory issues that I was talking about are real.
Yeah.
And you can't argue it anymore. It's real. After the 100 hours, after 3 months, the 12th and 17th percent went to the 78th and 98th percent. And my wife would tell you she got her husband back.
Yeah.
And what was happening was that my dedication and my training to focus on cognitive weaknesses and the exercises available to develop those weaknesses, over time, my brain, through neuroplasticity, I believe, rehabilitated some of those injured pathways and found new pathways, created new pathways to get to that memory destination.
Yeah.
And I trained myself to use those pathways. And I feel cognitively stronger today than I did when I was playing. So that was pretty profound.
Yeah. No.
And I wish every team did this. I think whether you've had a concussion or not, every team should have cognitive brain training program for their players. Because not only does it help you recover or strengthen your cognitive weaknesses after an injury, but it helps you strengthen them before an injury. Like you talk about processing speed as an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
You can increase your processing speed through brain training. You can increase your logic and reasoning, which is going to be connected to understanding defenses. Like imagine being able to not only work out your body, but work out your brain in a way that helps you become a smarter and more intelligent player on the field.
Yeah, it's an advantage.
It's an advantage.
If you're doing that, more than likely most people aren't. So then now you're able to get to places. You're anticipating things happening as opposed to reacting to the things happening, right?
Yeah, everything becomes faster. Your memory recall, like when you think about our audible systems and how intricate they are, your ability to, when I went to play in Cincinnati after that amnesia concussion, I was struggling to learn the Carson Palmer way. It wasn't as easy as it used to be. And I think about a program like I went through that has completely changed how I memorize things today and how I recall memory. If I would have had that going into the NFL, like it would have enhanced my intelligence as an athlete.
Definitely. But the beautiful thing is it's allowed you to enhance your intelligence as an inspirational speaker. So
Totally.
talk about that. Now you're helping corporate companies, their teams understand how to operate not only within teamwork, but just all of the lessons that you've taken from that. What has that journey been like, and what are you doing with that now?
Yeah, Tony, like that is my assignment from God. Like that's my calling is
Okay.
to take what Tony Dungy did in Indianapolis and bring it to the corporate marketplace. Like I have fallen in love with the power of building culture on the foundation of belief. And so everything that I've done in the last 16 years has been in this direction of becoming a subject matter expert on organizational culture. And so I started telling that story and got into the corporate marketplace. I got invited to be a chief culture officer at a private equity company.
Oh wow.
So I got to become an operationalist of culture across, our portfolio of companies. And then this last year launched the Champions Creed. And Tony Dungy did the preface and have some, unbelievable endorsements on here. And so everything that I'm doing now is about helping organizations build championship culture that's scalable and that will leave a legacy of purpose. And building out some really powerful AI assessment platforms for culture and for belief, and those are almost done. So super excited about what's around the corner.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm definitely going to get your book. That's for sure. That's happening. I'm going to send you mine as well.
Let's do it.
A book called What to Do When It's Done, Navigating Life After the Game. To your point. So for me, the calling is helping athletes in the transitional phase.
Love it.
I've dived into and dedicated myself to studying this thing called the athlete identity foreclosure. And it is a wild thing, but like you have these thoughts, but when you see the dissertations being written by psychologists about this thing, it's like, aha, I knew it was a thing. Like we say it, it's like, yeah, man, it's real, it's real, it's real. I felt it, it's real, it's real. But now you can put it in words, and there's studies on it. So I want to learn as much as I can. So I'm in that learning phase now.
Awesome.
I got a couple more questions for you. This one is more, I want to shine some light on Karen. Talk to me about how inspirational and just a pillar of strength that she's been for you throughout this entire journey. Obviously, we know she's an athlete as well. She's actually the best athlete in your family.
Yeah, she is. Totally.
For sure. Can you talk about her a little bit and just like having her in your corner?
Oh man, such an incredible woman. She's Norwegian, so it's pronounced Karen.
Karen. Oh.
Yeah, but no, but it totally looks like Karen. But it's I met Karen at the University of Minnesota. She was the captain of the women's golf team. We met through Fellowship of Christian Athletes and Athletes in Action, and she's really the bedrock of this family. She governs and stewards our family so well. And she's a brilliant woman. She was an academic All-American, graduated, from one of the top business schools. And she chose to be a mom. Like that was her thing. I mean, she could have gone and done whatever she wanted to do, but when we got married in Indianapolis, and I asked, how can I support you? She said, I want my job to be this family. And she really approaches it that way. And so, I didn't grow up in a family. I grew up with very little. And so, both my parents worked full time hard. And so at first I was a little like, well, why not go and do? But man, was I wrong. Like she, without her kind of being the foundation and the support system for me while I was playing, and then obviously as our family grew, I don't know where I would be, right? And so the same competitive nature that she had as a golfer, the same talent she had as a Miss Minnesota, the same commitment she has to education and to whatever she does, she does it with all of her heart.
Yeah.
As though working for the Lord. Colossians 3:23, that's one of my life verses, right? And so so she's such a strong foundation, Tony, and I'm so blessed to share my life with her.
Man, that's amazing. And you guys have produced 4 beautiful young girls, and they're off and doing their thing in the world, man. So
just gotta protect them from the guys. That's my whole thing. Like,
well, I
yeah.
tell you what, if they have a mom like her, then I'm pretty sure they're going to be all right.
Yes. Yes.
So, when you think about your family, your daughters, everything you've walked through, what are you intentionally building now from a legacy standpoint? We've walked through
Yeah.
football and all of that, the concussions overcoming, the speaking, the family. What is the legacy moment now?
So man, the whole podcast could be on that, but the legacy, so much of legacy is found within intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as parents, that's such an important word for us to really pause and really ask ourselves that challenging questions. How intentional are we being in the development of our children?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, as somebody who spends his career developing culture and businesses and developing leaders, it's my job to take what I preach and bring it home and practice it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be really intentional about putting even more care into the people that I love the most, being present, so that I can really give them the knowledge and understanding that they require to develop wisdom, and then to show them how to apply the wisdom so that they can create a foundation of their own development and their own success towards their dreams and towards their goals. And especially with 4 girls, Tony, because I read a book called Strong Father, Strong Daughter that just raised the bar on this idea that I'm the first example of what a hero is to my daughters.
Yeah.
And so if I want them to marry men of integrity and character, I sure better be a man of integrity and character.
Yeah.
Because they're always watching. And my example, how I treat my wife, how I affirm my wife, how I resolve conflict with my wife.
Yeah.
Even more importantly, like how do we battle? And how am I showing them what it looks like to argue well and battle well?
Mm-hmm.
And the radical importance of having humility as a father to be able to acknowledge when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And I've done that. I have a practice of it. Like if I'm wrong, I've had moments where I'll get on my knees. I'm 6'7", so I'm a tall guy.
Yeah.
I will get on my knees so that I'm below them physically. And I will say, I need to apologize to you, for the way that I spoke, or whatever it is. And what I'm doing is I'm setting a standard, right? That they grew up having a masculine, big, strong dad who was willing to submit and acknowledge when he was wrong. Because I want to create that expectation for them. I want them to be able to, experience that and say, man, I want to find a guy who, is going to, look at me as an equal.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm trying to say there?
Yeah.
So I'm rambling a little bit, but
No.
I think that intentionality
Yeah.
of really being the leaders of the family, to give our kids as much knowledge and understanding, so that we can give them wisdom to make decisions for themselves.
I love that. No, that is something that I study often. Biblical wisdom. One of the things in Ecclesiastes, it talks about times and seasons, right? So there's a time to be assertive, but there's also a time to be humble, right? And when you talk about showing humility, one of the things that I hear often, I'm moving to another thought before I finish that. I often do that. But one of the things that I hear often is for men that are seeking to become better versions of themselves is talking about humility, and it's talking about integrity, right? And I always look at the balance of humility, integrity, but also not being so humble that you don't speak to things that need to be aligned in truth. Because sometimes we say, okay, well, I want to be humble, or I want to be, like, just use humble. I want to show humility. And it's like, no, you can show humility, but you still have to speak to truth. And a lot of times when you speak about truth, that truth causes friction, and you have to be okay with that. And it's like finding the balance of that. Recognizing, hey, if you're wrong, bro, say you're wrong, right? Don't let pride, first pride and destruction, right? And then a haughty spirit, right? Don't have that. But also make sure that you're not afraid to speak to truth, because you're running away from the friction that truth might cause. And that's one of the things I've had to learn in my life, because I'm like, all right, I want to be humble. But it's like, no, bro, but you're right. You're right.
And that's the thing. Yeah. And that's why, having that clarity, like humility simply means not viewing yourself as superior or greater than another person. Yeah. So that it has nothing to do with truth.
Yeah.
It's just so you can be a humble person.
Yes.
And Dungy did this all the time. He almost always behaved in that quiet strength, humility. But he wasn't afraid to speak truth into your life.
Yeah.
And he wasn't afraid to confront. He wasn't afraid to challenge. So the combination of the two, like to your point, is the balance.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's good. Man, to be able to be coached by somebody like that, man, that has to be inspiring.
It was awesome.
As we wrap up, Ben, we always have this final question. It's like our signature ending question, all right?
Okay.
So it goes like this. So when the arena goes quiet, what part of you remains that the game could never take, and what are you building with it now?
The first word that jumped into my mind was commitment. I think when the arena goes quiet, when that time is over, where does my commitment lie? And so I would say that the thing that remains, the thing that, even though the arena goes quiet, the thing that remains loud inside my spirit and my soul is to be committed to whatever I'm called to do next for the glory of God. And I carry that same commitment, the same commitment that I needed to get a Division I scholarship, the same commitment I needed to endure the injuries and make it into the NFL, is the same commitment now that speaks loud into what I have to bring into a different arena.
Man, Dude, this has been awesome.
It's been great. I love it.
This has been awesome. Is there any way that, our audience will see this? Where can they find you? Like, is there any
Yeah.
more thing that you want to get out to the league or to everybody?
Super active on social. Spend most of my time on Instagram, just my name, and very accessible on LinkedIn. Obviously working with a lot of people, so please reach out. Check out benutechtSpeaks.com. I just launched my new speaking reel, which is it's a fantastic reel, a lot of highlights, Tony Dungy, all sorts of cool stuff on there. But I really appreciate you, Tony, what you're doing and how you're pouring into to the players and how they're transitioning. I think it's inspiring to see how you've taken everything that you've experienced and now you're creating a legacy that's pouring into the purpose of others. So I just really affirm you in that. I think it's awesome.
I appreciate that, man. That's why we're building this platform. I mean, we want to get as many people on it as we can to be able to share their story and to talk about these moments. So I thank you. And so as we wrap up today, you've heard from an amazing man. He's an amazing father, amazing husband. This was just amazing all the way around.
Okay.
I was excited about this. I was talking to my wife before, and I was like, yo, this is going to be one of those ones. And so you definitely delivered, Ben. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
And so for everybody watching, if this conversation spoke to you, make sure that you tap in, go to subscribe to the channel, go to thequietarenapodcast.com. You'll be able to see the merch that represents the message. And also, if you're an athlete that is trying to figure things out, there's a resource there for you called What to Do When It's Done, Navigating Life After the Game. Check that out as well. And as always, man, you're always invited to the locker room. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for being with us. And thank you guys for listening. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Living legend, lethal weapon, mastermind, never tried, tell them all.